And hello YouTube. This is Thomas Judge back once again with another YouTube reading guide series, and today is the sixth video in the series talking about the Marvel What If line of comics. A short series of videos this. It's breaking on the comic issues of the What If universe as best I can. In order to do that, I've read almost all the issues that are available. There's a total of 244 comics in the Marvel What If universe, and I've read over 220 of them. In fact, the first 5 videos in this series have been a long and exhaustive look through the first 2 series of Marvel What If, which you could also refer to as volumes if you like it. And that covered over 150 single issues. So what we're going to do now, the next couple of videos, is zip through the remaining 10 or so volumes, and that's volumes with a large V, which are going to cover all the rest of the issues that we're talking about, but are in much more bite size in their format and size. Quick point: there's a lot of terms that I use, like volume with a small v or volume with a big V, or all the different multiverse things I'll be talking about. And there are other explanatory videos on my channel that describe those, and you'll find those in the playlist below. So with no further ado, what is What If? So there exist parallel worlds beyond our own. Within these worlds, each living being faces turning points in their own existence, and a choice must be made at every one of these points. Choices that will affect their own destinies, and perhaps that of their world or even the universe itself. Call it the road not taken, the chance missed, the decision deferred. Of what might have been, what could have happened, but for the invisible workings of an incomprehensible fate. Call it What If. So in today's video, we're going to be moving on from the second volume or series of What If to the next major series to look at what we're going to call Volume 3. In fact, we're going to look at Volumes 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, in my previous 5 videos, what I've done is I've popped up these little watermarks on the side of the screen to indicate if something is available on Marvel Unlimited or Comixology, in other words, if it's available digitally. I've also had a bit of a chat about how things are available physically. Long story short, almost all of the first series is available physically, and almost none of the second series is available in physical collected editions. So hunting them down as single issues is an absolute nightmare. Well, from this point on, for Volume 3 onwards, I'm not going to show those little watermarks on the side, Marvel Unlimited or Comixology, because literally every single thing that we're looking at now is available digitally in one place or another. I think there's one exception, and I will talk about that when it comes up. But otherwise, let's get straight into it. Volume 3 of Marvel's What If came out in 2005 and is subtitled Volume 3 What If, Why Not? Question mark. So this came out in February 2005 and was a further 6 issues of What If. They're all in a one-shot format, so there's no two parts, there's no connection between them. And it also included a single parody edition called Wah in August 2005. So just to go through these issues one at a time, as you can see here, we've got What If Karen Page Had Lived? This is written by Bendis and is reality number 523001. We then have What If Doctor Doom Had Become the Thing, which is reality number 523003. We then have What If General Ross Had Become the Hulk? That's written by Peter David and is 523000. And we then have What If Jessica Jones Had Joined the Avengers? That's written by Bendis as well, and that's 523002. And then we have What If Professor X and Magneto Formed the X-Men Together, written by Chris Claremont. That's 523004. It doesn't really matter what order you read them in. If you want, you can read them in the sequential order of the reality numbers, but it honestly doesn't make any difference. I've just put them up here in the order in which I read them. The last one of this volume is What If Aunt May Had Died Instead of Uncle Ben, which is written by Ed Brubaker and is reality number 52136. That One of Humor issue, which is called Waha, is kind of like a comedy issue, lots of sort of like stupid, goofy vignettes, and that's Earth 200500. Now, this entire series, including the Waha humor issue, was later collected in a trade paperback that was entitled What If, Why Not? Now, it's important you keep an eye on that. You're aware of what's involved in it, because the numbering and the kind of labeling of the What If trade paperback collections is pretty lacking. So it's actually quite hard to track down the exact collection that has the thing that you need. With that said, let's move on to volume 4 of What If, which actually came out in February 2006. So this consists of a bunch of one-shots that again take place in a What If universe, but in this case they all take place in the same single fictional universe. So they all take place in a universe that has the distinction of being dubbed Earth 717. And the reason we know it all takes place in this is because all the issues are framed by the conceit of an online watcher. Now, the original Marvel What If series, most of them for all of Series 1 and the first 70 or so issues of Series 2, all had the Watcher, Uatu, the Watcher who lives on the moon, narrating and framing the story. After that, it stopped being a case where it was framed in that way, and there were just one-off What If issues. But for this, they brought back the idea of a Watcher, but in this case, it's just a guy called Hector who has happened to somehow hack into the internet of another dimension. So the idea is he's either from our reality or another reality, and he's hacked into the internet of Earth 717. So the issues within this, let's start at the beginning, is what if Captain America had lived in the American Civil War? This is written by Tony Bedard. The next one is what if Fantastic Four were Russian cosmonauts, written by Mike Carey. There's also what if the Submariner had grown up on land instead of Atlantis? That was written by Greg Pak. There's, I guess, quite a sort of cliched story of what if Daredevil had lived in feudal Japan? Daredevil ninjas kind of writes itself. What if Thor was a herald of Galactus? That was written by Robert Kirkman and drawn by Oeming, who's his usual collaborator as an artist. And finally, what if Wolverine was public enemy number 1? So that was written by Daniel Way, but it's interesting to note that it throws in a reference to the Origins miniseries by Paul Jenkins, which is the origin of Wolverine as James Howlett, and that's set in the 616 universe. Anyway, overall, this was pretty interesting. The Wolverine issue was by far the best, and the series was later collected as a single trade paperback called What If? Mirror, Mirror. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's move on to the next volume. So this is volume 5. This came out in late 2006, so actually came out the same year as volume 4, but much later on. It came out in November, whereas volume 4 came out in February. So what this does is this is a series of one-shots that are all based on major storylines or crossovers. Now, I did say this in video 1 of the series. Whenever you read a What If comic, it really massively helps reading and understanding what the comedy is doing. What the comic is parodying and doing. If you read the original event. If you don't read the original event, you won't quite get how clever the What If issue might be, or sometimes how clever it tried to be but failed. So I'd strongly recommend reading the events we're talking about before you read these What If issues. So what do we have here? This is What If Avengers, which asks what if the Scarlet Witch had not acted alone. That's written by Jeff Parker and it's Earth 22795. We then have What If Spider-Man the Other, which asks what if Peter Parker had rejected his inner spider. This was written by Peter David and is issue 70134. We then have What If Wolverine Enemy of the State? What if Wolverine was never deprogrammed? This is written by Jimmy Robinson and is Earth 14850. Really good story, highly recommended. Then we have What If Age of Apocalypse? What if both Xavier and Magneto were killed by Legion? This is written by Rick Remender and is in Earth 93074. And then we have What If X-Men Deadly Genesis? What if Vulcan became the leader of the X-Men? Written by David Hine, which you can kind of tell when you read it because it's kind of a dark underbelly of that story, if you know what I mean. And the Earth number here is Earth 98193. This series was later collected into a trade paperback entitled What If Event Horizon. It features a cover from the Spider-Man one-shot, and I'd recommend definitely checking it out, maybe even picking it up. Obviously, make up your own mind, but I was very much like, this is a strong volume right here. Okay, let's move on to volume 6. This came out in 2007. Actually, came out in 2007 and 2008. Let's go through them one at a time. We have What If Planet Hulk? So these are written by Greg Pak, but I say these because there's actually 3 stories in one issue. The first one's more of a What If World War Hulk, to be honest, instead of What If Planet Hulk. The second one's pretty good, and the third one is a one-page goofy bit of fluff, which I'll mention because it's in there, but it's not very good. So the first part of this 3-story issue is asking the question, what if Kyra the Old Strong had survived the destruction on Sakaar instead of the Hulk? That's reality number 1237. The next story asks, what if the Hulk had landed on the planet the Illuminati had originally intended for him, which is Earth 7121 as a reality number? If you remember, the planet that he was meant to land on was meant to be sort of a harmless planet with no people to bother him and no sort of advanced life forms or anything like that. And the third story in this, which is just a one-page goofy bit of fluff, that asks, what if the Hulk had reverted to Bruce Banner when he crashed on Sakaar? And that's reality number 2713. So with that issue out of the way, the next one is what if Annihilation, which asks what if the Annihilation wave reached Earth? It's written by David Hine and it's set in Earth 14026. It's quite cool if you, like me, if you kind of forget that at the time Annihilation was happening as a cosmic event, everyone on Earth was distracted by the Marvel Civil War. And it's really interesting to look at this what if story of what happens if those two completely different tones and tempos of storyline intersect. Next up, we have What If X-Men: Rise and Fall of the Shia Empire. So this is written by Chris Yost, who's one half of the Kyle and Yost partnership. This is more accurately described as what if Vulcan absorbed the energies of the M crystal and became Phoenix, which is like very obviously what it's asking straight from the get-go. So it's a bit of a weird title. Anyway, this is Reality Universe 8020. Next up, we have What If Civil War. This is actually two stories within one framing narrative, and the framing narrative is a conversation happening at Captain America's grave. So this framing narrative is written by Ed Brubaker, and itself sets up two what if stories, which are what if Captain America led all the heroes against the Superhero Registration Act, and that's written by Kevin Grievous. And then the other one it asks is what if Iron Man lost the Civil War? And that's written by Christos Gage. So they're set in Earths 2108 and 10208, respectively. Yeah, is it? Yeah. 10208 is the Iron Man one. Okay, and then finally we have what if Spider-Man versus Wolverine? This asks what if Spider-Man had remained in 1980s Russia after causing an accidental death? And this is reality number 8351. That's in the volume 6, which, like I say, published in 2007, 2008. At this point, we just need to take a moment to take a breath because at this point, obviously, what I just talked about has been collected as a particular volume. That's collected as volume 6 of What If. But next, what we see is a single What If issue, which is collected by itself. And this orphaned What If issue has got this cover here, and it was initially meant to be in volume 6, as we've just seen. However, it was halted due to the passing of artist Mike Waringo, and instead it was released as a 48 special as a tribute to him in June 2008, and all of its proceeds went to the Hero Initiative. Now, this issue was meant to ask what if the New Fantastic Four, and it was meant to feature the original New Fantastic Four that had Spider-Man, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, and the Hulk teaming up, as seen in Fantastic Four 347 to 349. Because it was published several months later in June 2008 due to the sad passing of the artist, this is kind of an orphaned issue. It's collected nowhere and is really hard to track down, and I couldn't even find it digitally. I don't know if that's a problem with like my app or Comixology, but yeah, it's very hard to track down. However, it's important to know it exists and to read it if you're planning on reading the next volume, which is volume 7 of What If. And I'm going to explain why in just a second. But just have a moment. This is the cover we're talking about. This is the orphaned issue, and it's Earth number 808122. Okay. With that, what we're going to look at next is the final volume we'll look at today, which is volume 7. This published in 2008. Frankly, it published in December 2008. And that's when Marvel published 5 What If specials, which appeared weekly. In addition to that, there was a storyline as a backup storyline in each of these issues featuring the Runaways as the Young Avengers, which ran throughout the volume. So we'll talk about that as well. Now, this series continues the themes of alternatives for 3 recent Marvel events, along with 2 that are sort of around classic events. Now, keep in mind there is a Fantastic Four story here, which is a sequel to the Mike Wieringo tribute one-shot that we just talked about. But having said that, the Fantastic Four issue in Volume 7 makes sense even if you read it by itself. So let's talk about them one at a time. We've got What If House of M, what if the Scarlet Witch had said no more powers instead of no more mutants? That's Earth 9021. We also have What If Fallen Sun, The Death of Captain America? What if Iron Man had been killed instead of Captain America? That's Earth 9230. We then have What If Newer Fantastic Four, which asks what if the new Fantastic Four had battled Thanos. So this is a sequel to the Mike Waringo issue we just talked about. Subsequent to that, we have What If Spider-Man Back in Black? What if Mary Jane had been shot instead of Aunt May? This is a good issue, and it's Earth 90213. And also then we have What If Secret Wars? What if Doctor Doom had kept the Beyonders' power? This is Earth 90251, and for my money is one of the best What If issues ever written. Exceptional stuff. As I mentioned, a backup story ran through each of those 5 issues, meaning I would strongly recommend reading them in the order that I've just said and shown you. Now, that backup issue, as I mentioned, is What If Runaways? Asking the question, what if the Runaways had become the Young Avengers? So it runs through all 5 of the previous issues, and it's a messy, incoherent tale that isn't really worth tracking down. That's reality number 2912. Now, this entire series, the volume 7, is collected as a trade paperback called What If Secret Wars. It includes the 5 backup issues as one single story at the end, so it's all collected in one go, but still does not include that Mike Waringo one-shot, which, like I said, is really, really hard to track down. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a good point for me to draw this penultimate video to a close. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, feel free to follow me on Twitter, where you can follow what I'm reading on a day-to-day basis, but also ping me any DMs if you have any questions about anything. And if you want to support the channel, it's really easy. All you need to do is head over to Amazon and pick up the first volume of my prose superhero novel, No Gods or Kings, which costs less than $1 and is free if you have Kindle Unlimited. A free excerpt is on my website, No Gods or Kings, which has a link in the description below. Until next time, everyone, stay classy.